That's about to be really loud.
Let's see. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm going to throw a message on Facebook really quick to make sure that we are ready to go. Let's see, 2 people. Three people. Hello, everyone. If you're in here, my mom and I are here. Hey, Jocelyn, can you hear me okay? If you can hear me okay, go ahead and just type that you can in the box for me. That would be much appreciated. Thank you so, so much. Jocelyn, I actually need to make you an admin on our page so you can post some things for me. Is that something you'll be cool with doing, Jocelyn? Yes, that would be beautiful because I need someone to put on there right now that we're live. What time is class? Do we need a new link every week? No. Class is starting now. Give me just 1 second, y'all. Not sure how to do it, but I'm up for trying. That's what I'm talking about, Jocelyn. You can do it. It's just like having a Facebook account, and you'll be able to read the responses from everyone. It'll be good. It'll be good practice for you too. All right, so we'll talk about that. Okay, let's see. We got 6, 7 people here. We'll give them just one more. We'll start in about 1 more minute, okay? 10 people. Hello, Presley. If you can't hear me, let me know. I'm going to be quiet for a second, though, so I probably shouldn't have said that. Okay, we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hello, good evening. All right, I got that posted up. All right, Chandra, hello, how are you? Let me see who's all here really quick. Hey, Andrea. Brooke, hello. Kayla, hello. Chandra, hello. Lacey, hello. All right, we got a lot of people here. All right, well, good evening to everybody. I want to start off by saying thank you for turning in your homework, everybody that did. And I got a lot of comments to give you about your homework so that will help us to continue to learn. So the first thing that I saw in the homework, the first thing to talk about is, especially for my people who have been signing for a little bit, I want to talk a little bit to you about something called prosody, and that's spelled Prosody, prosody. And prosody, what that is it's a rhythm in which we talk. So in our language, there are 2 functional things that we use. We use contextual elements and then we use functional elements. And contextual elements are what we're actually talking about. And in sign language, whatever we're actually talking about, we go to first. And the reason why we do that is because I want you to think about it. In sign language, what must I do in order to communicate with you? I have to have your eyesight and I have to have your attention. So I have to actually have you engage and focus on me while I talk to you. And because that takes more eye motion, that takes more energy to focus your eyes and your attention on somebody, in sign language, it's only natural to get to your point immediately. So some people think that in sign language and in deaf culture, Sometimes it can come across rude because it's so direct. But the thing is that I only have your attention for that moment. So my goal is to talk about my object first, my context, and then to create the functional elements, the style in which we do things. So in English, we use prepositional phrases a lot. So if my context was about 4 chairs that I bought from the furniture store, in sign language, the first thing I'm going to go to while I have your attention is talk about how the store I went to and chairs that I bought. Okay, because I need your attention. Then I'll start to tell you about the chairs. Okay, well, the chairs, they were about this high, and then they were red, they were blue, and then I start to function it and style it how I want you to see it. So that's why we have noun and then adjective. That's why we have object and then comment, topic, and then what we need to talk about with that topic. So because of that, when you're signing, your goal is to get my attention and to create a flow. So I don't know if you remember the Red Eye Man. For those who are younger, you might not know, but you remember the Visine guy that he used to talk like this. He talked real monotone. You need red eye. And I don't know if you ever had a teacher like that who just talked like this the whole class. Yes, you might understand that, teacher, but after a while, it's driving you crazy because it doesn't follow a rhythm and how we're used to hearing what we say. And unfortunately, when we're starting off in sign language, we often sound like that red eye guy, that Visine guy, because we're so focused on getting the right signs that we sign very stiff. We don't have a flow or a rhythm. So sometimes when I give you homework and I tell you to sign, hi, it's nice to meet you, and I tell you to essentially introduce yourself, your goal is not to just hit the signs. Hi, my name, Mario, nice to meet you. Sometimes it's to create a rhythm. I might say, hi, language I'm learning, now I'm student. And it's not uncommon to start giving more so that the language actually makes sense. Actually, in interpreting, I had a project one time in Atlanta, and in deaf culture and sign language, there's no such thing as a closed-in question. So like a yes or no question. Do you believe this, yes or no? And when I was interpreting from my deaf client, it was at an optometry office, and the optometrist kept saying, is this line more clear than this one, yes or no? And every time he asked that, my deaf client would stop, and he would think, well, the other one before was, and he always had to elaborate on his experience. And it actually started making the optometrist a little bit upset because he's like, can you just give me a yes or no answer? And as the interpreter in the room, I actually had to stop and I had to tell him, I said, in their culture, they don't have yes or no questions. Their language is to describe their experience. So when you're signing, I want you to actually think, how can I make this flow? So I'm gonna give you an example. So one of your homework was to go ahead and give me 3 phone numbers for 3 businesses. So everybody did a great job. You had your numbers and you hit everything, but everything was very, very stagnant. And that's okay, you're learning. But what I want you to get in the habit of, if I'm gonna talk about 3 different things, I want you to start using something that we call indexing. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna go to Burger King, McDonald's, and Checkers. So I'm gonna say, so now I've presented them on my hands. Now I can tell you their phone number. Now I can tell you what kind of foods they serve, and everything is in a list. Now you're starting to follow this wave, this rhythm of the language. So now I can say, so I can easily transition about talking. I can easily transition each topic instead of signing Burger King and then talking about it and then having to go back and sign it again, talk about it, go back again, sign again. Do you see how that would leave the natural flow? So if that makes sense, let me know in the box. But what I'm trying to get you to see is that it's not going to be uncommon for you to start elaborating a little bit more than just me giving you the sentence itself to sign. Our goal is to get ourselves out of English and to get into visual. Another thing that I saw was when everybody was doing their finger spelling. So like if I finger spell cat, what I saw people doing literally in their mind, they were saying cat in their head, C-A-T. Okay? And what's happening is that you're holding these letters, not just because you're thinking about which one comes next, but you're actually hearing when the C ends, when the A ends, when the T ends. I want you to think the moment C comes out, it has been registered. So I don't need you to go boom, boom, boom. I need you to go, okay? I don't need you to sound it in your head. I want you to just think about it visually. The moment it hits in visual space, it's been received. So I don't want you to wait on in your head, at. I want you to just blend it. I want you to think, as soon as you hit the letter, it's been registered, okay? Any questions about that? And then the last thing I want to talk to you about with the homework as well is what we're going to actually blend and talk about today in class are facial expressions. So do me a favor, somebody type out the 5 parameters of sign language for me in the chat box. The 5 parameters of sign language. The last one that is talked about is facial expressions. And really, I want to kind of rewrite the book for a second, though I don't have the authority to. It's a different author. However, I want you to think about facial expressions as being emotions, okay? So your emotion when you ask somebody what's wrong should be what? Should it be happy? Hey, what's wrong? You know, or should it be a little bit more concerning? Okay, if you're happy, what emotion is carrying that? Excitement, happiness. So when I sign things like happy, all right, you have to show it. So a lot of people, especially hearing people, when they watch deaf people sign, they're like, oh, they're so animated. Oh, they're so, oh, something's going on. No, what it is that English, we depend on our words to convey how we feel. But in sign language, we convey on our facial expressions. So what happens a lot is that you don't really get too much sarcasm in sign language because you're going to know exactly how that person feels. So if you're having a bad day and you're trying to hide it, you're not going to do too well with sign language because it's going to show on your face if you're upset. So we have to get in the habit of thinking, what emotion am I carrying when I say this? So when I say something like nice to meet you, I want to say something like, what's my emotion? It's pleasant. I actually do like that I met you. So, all right. I wouldn't say something like, okay. So your emotion, your facial expressions. Okay. Give me a second to read the comments. Can't keep up. Good. Good, good. So that makes sense. Good. So I'm glad you're getting that. So I want you to understand to carry the emotion. So before you sign, this is so key. Before you sign, visually have everything ready in your head. What typically happens is that when we want to sign, we just start signing. And what's going to happen is we're going to end up in English word order and we're trying to find the signs before we sign. Okay. And also in finger spelling, it's another thing I saw in your homework. The first letter, you hold it in space. So if I'm going to spell checkers, I would hold the C. And the reason why I'm holding the first letter is because I'm actually taking a minute to think, what does that word checkers look like? So when I go to sign, I'm not going to go and just hit all the way through. I'm actually going to hold the first letter because now I'm thinking, what does the rest of it sound like? Or what does the rest of it look like? So I'm going to go. And now I can speed up. So I want you to actually have that moment of hesitating. Let's see if I sign my name. And then I can speed up. Okay, that's how you gain speed when you fingerspell, because you actually thought about the entire word before you started signing. One of my interpreter friends put it like this. Sometimes you go into the closet to put your clothes on. And she said, you know, sometimes when she starts interpreting, she gets ahead of herself and she'll put her shirt on and then the bra. or you put your shirt on, then the t-shirt on top. And the thing is, you have to slow down and actually organize, what am I going to put out there first? And then I'll finish it, okay? So that's what I saw in your homework, and everybody really did do a good job. But those are just a couple of things I wanted to point out. So let me know if you have any questions in the chat box. And if not, we're going to go ahead and learn some more signs today. All right, so, let's go ahead and start off with numbers. So we're in page 16 with our numbers. One thing I saw a lady do in the video, forgot your name, I would say your name, is that I saw a lot of people sign 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the hand palm orientation backwards. You're not wrong, because that is what the book has. However, I think I mentioned it briefly on another video. We use this as cardinal numbers or counting numbers. So if I had 5 books in the room, then I would sign books 5. I would turn it backwards, because in sign language, every time we use a number, we're using it in a different way. So if I said it was 5 o'clock, I actually go time and I shake 5. If I had $5, I actually go $5. I actually turn it, because the 5 has a different function. So every time a number has a different function, we sign it a different way. In English, we don't do that. The number 5 is still 5. So that's one of the big differences between sign and English, is how we use the numbers and then how we express them. So when you sign regularly a phone number and it has 1 through 5 in it, so 525, you leave the palm facing forward. Now, if you're going to sign 3 phone numbers, I might say phone number 3. Then I turn around to do my numbers, okay? Any questions on that? So let's go from the top really quick. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you know that. That's good, right? Now let's go 11 to 20. That's going to be for today. So you have 11, 12, thumb out 13, thumb in 14, thumb out 15. So let's do that again. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And remember, when you sign, I saw this in your homework as well too, a lot of people had their hand way out here when they signed, all right? The problem with that is that my goal as a sign language receiver is to look at your hands and your face, because your emotions tell me what you're saying. If I don't have your facial expressions, I won't be able to fully get what you're saying. So if you have your hand way out here and you're signing, then I'm looking back and forth trying to catch up to what you're saying. So your goal is to always have your hand close to your face, not in front of your face, and not where it's uncomfortable. I know sometimes in the video you don't have as much space, but make sure that it's right off to the side and I can see your mouth, I can see your face, I can see your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? The old original sign for 16 was 10 and then 6. So sometimes you'll see 10, you'll see 16. A newer sign is 16. Another newer sign is 16. So there's 3 signs for 16. So there's the original one, 16, 16, 16. The one I most likely see are the last 2. I normally see 16, and I really always tend to see this one because it's a lot faster. So the difference between 6 and 16 is that your thumb is off to the side. And other students that I've taught, some people actually have a hard time getting their fingers to do this. So what I recommend is that you stretch your fingers and you work on finger dexterity. So if you have like a keyboard or something that you can work on your fingers hitting things, work on your dexterity of the fingers. And if you still have a hard time, then guess what? This is going to be your sign for 16. Nobody's going to force you to sign 16, especially if your hands won't do that. So 16, you guessed it, 17, 18, 19. So full sign would be 16, 17, 18, 19. Or 16, 17, 18, 19, or 16, 17, 18, 19. Got that? And then 20 is 20, all right? So you have all those numbers. Let's go through them one more time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, any questions on that? So when do I turn my hand backwards? And it only happens from numbers 1 to 5. So tell me, when do I turn my hand backwards? Someone tell me in the box, when do I turn my hand backwards? Okay, so as you're doing that, we're going to move over to page 42. because today we're going to go through days and time signs. All right, so that's what we're moving through, page 42, days and time signs. I'm going to give you the rest of the numbers as classes go on because they get a little tedious and I don't want to bombard you with too much of the same information in one night. Okay? So page 42, cardinal numbers, good. Cardinal or counting numbers. So inward for math. No, that's a great question. So if I'm saying 2 plus 2 together equals 4, I'm not counting 4. I'm just expressing 4 in math. So I would face it forward. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Nobody's going to get super mad if you go 2 plus 2 equals 4. Nobody will get super mad, but that's just not needed. Good question. List. Okay. If you have a list, depending on, yes. So if you go 1, well, it depends on how you're listing. If you list on your hands, you can turn it to the side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you're ranking, it goes first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So it just depends on how you're using your numbers. Okay. When we are talking about a group number, what do you mean by that, Ruth? A group number. Okay. So when is it inward regularly used? What do you mean inward? Does this mean inward? Call this palm orientation back, palm orientation forward. So when it's back, that's your counting numbers. Any other generic general time is going to be like this. So when you're doing your phone number, it's going to be turned like this. When you're doing your years, it's going to be turned like this. A lot of times you normally see it facing outward or palm orientation forward. Okay, it's only turned for cardinal numbers and it's only 1 through 5. Because 6, you won't be able to see my thumb and pinky. So you won't see it used often when it's turned backwards. Okay, no, great question. I'm glad. Always ask a question. Okay, I'm going to move forward. I'll check the comment box in a second if you have any other questions. Now, the next thing that we're going to get to, your goal is not just to learn signs. Your goal is to understand how the language moves. So I had another thing happen when I was looking at your homework where a lot of people were talking about they were signing with their mouth, using your mouth as well. All right, that's a problem. You're not going to sign and talk at the same time because once again, you're going to depend on when you finish the word based when you sign it. There is much more, if that's properly said in English. There is a lot more vocabulary in English than there is in ASL. So 10 words in English might only be 2 signs in ASL. So if you're trying to talk and sign at the same time, I'm slowing down my sign language because I don't need all of those signs to match those words. Okay, so I naturally start signing like the Visine guy because I'm now having to wait until I finish my English word. But when I'm quiet, all right, you're at much more freedom to sign when your mouth is off. Okay, but let me ask you this in the chat box. When do you think I need to sign and talk at the same time? Would there be a time when I need to sign and talk at the same time? When would that be? So while you're answering that, that's why there's different styles of sign language. And these styles are not necessarily foreign languages. They're just an adapted style to match English. Okay, so when you learn something like signed exact English, pidgin English, case, these are manual sign language that match English, and they're not considered a foreign language. But when you learn ASL, American Sign Language, it's considered a foreign language because it carries its own culture and its own grammar and syntax. Okay, let me read what you said. So, but if there are only a few signs for many words, isn't that when you need your mouth to emphasize which words? Sometimes, Tabitha, sometimes. So let me answer that. So if I'm interpreting, and like today I was listening to a sermon and the word narrative was used. So the word narrative, type in the box, what does the word narrative mean? What's the synonym for narrative? Because there's no sign for narrative. That exact word narrative. What does narrative mean? Good, Candace, it's a story. It's a story. So if the speaker is wanting the crowd to focus on the word narrative, then what I would do is I would sign narrative. I would actually sign the generic sign for story, but then I would put on my lips narrative. And if it was really important, then I would fingerspell narrative so that my deaf client is looking at that word narrative because they're getting ready to make some kind of comparison to that word. But if it's just in the meaning and the context of the lecture itself, then narrative. And I never have to say it because the actual sign is story, okay? There's no written form of sign language. So because we use this as a gloss word for story, it means so much more than just that word story, okay? In a group when someone is delivering good, perfect. So it's called simultaneous communication when you sign and talk at the same time. So if you're talking to a deaf person and a hearing person, that hearing person doesn't know sign language, then yes, I could sign and talk at the same time. I really won't be speaking great English and I really won't be signing very good, but it's enough to acknowledge both languages in the room. Okay, we have that. We have something called pidgin, P-I-D-G-I-N, pidgin, which is a blend. This happens a lot maybe when a Spanish person now comes into America and they're learning English and now their Spanish starts to sound kind of English. Some people might call that Spanglish or something like that, where you're starting to kind of now favor what's happening in the language, in the area that you're using the language. So pidgin tends to happen when I start signing, but then I start using a lot of English words when I'm signing. So I'm not fully in ASL, but I'm not fully in English. Pidgin is a mix. CASE stands for conceptually accurate signed English. That means that I am signing in English, but I actually am conveying the correct meaning. So run, the word run. The word run means so many things in English. I could run a race. I can go run the faucet. My nose could run. I could run for office. So all of it's spelled the same way, R-U-N, but they all mean something different. So if I was in the other thing called signed exact English, I might just sign run because everybody's focusing on the word and I would be okay. But that meaning doesn't match what it actually, and I was actually talking about running for office, but I signed this run. So that would be often meaning. And so if I swap and match the meaning, then I'm using conceptually accurate signed English. And a lot of interpreters, if they're good at CASE, they can actually take a lot of assignments because they will actually be interpreting correctly. However, the only downfall is that if you actually have someone who uses full ASL, then there will be words that they won't understand. So that's why it's important to be aware of the other languages, but to really focus on ASL. And when I trained in ASL, all of my teachers made sure that I learned ASL. They hammered ASL because you naturally learn the other ones. Any questions about that? So if narrative is in a word, how do they know what it means when you spell it? Okay, so if narrative isn't a word, they have now. I'm sorry, Kayla, let me read that one more time. If narrative isn't a word, they have how do they know what it means when you spell it? So that goes back to the language being visual. So words like credit, okay? Credit can mean different things. Your credit card, you can check your credit score. So I can trust that my deaf person has seen that word credit, but they might not have never been told what that word means. So spelling it just puts it in their language visually. So I can spell narrative, and they might have seen that word before, but they might not have known what that word meant. That's why it's so dangerous when you have an ASL user and an interpreter. That interpreter has to actually know how that deaf person is receiving the language. Because if they've been deaf their whole life and never heard a lot of English words, then they won't know what narrative means. And it's my responsibility to see if they understood that word narrative, but actually gave them what that word meant because their language is visual. Okay, so that's a great question. My biggest challenge with learning ASL versus C, I've known it for 20 plus years. So you just got to turn C off, Sabrina. You got to just focus on ASL. You can't depend on English. We'll talk about that more. I'll come get you. Any other questions? C. Okay. All right. So you know those differences in those styles. So your goal now when you turn in your homework, I know I'd spend a lot of time on that, but I want you to fight it so much to not use your mouth. Because what happens when you start meeting deaf people, you'll realize you won't have the ability to talk to them. You're going to either be writing or you're going to be signing. So you're going to have to learn a different way to communicate versus auditory. Okay. All right, so let's learn a couple more signs. We don't have much time left. So I'm going to give you your homework since we're at the end of the class. So your homework is to go ahead and start reading over the Days and Time chapter. Note that whenever we sign, we always sign in first person and we sign in present tense. So if you know that to be true, the first thing that we have to sign, if it's not present anymore, is if it's past or if it's future. So this chapter that you're going to be reading, this is basically how we start off everything in sign language, is with tense, T-E-N-S-E. So when you're learning and starting to go over your days and time signs, know that this comes at the beginning of the chapter of your sentences. All right, so that's page 42 through 50. Make sure you go over numbers 11 through 20, okay? And give me one second. I want to see if I want to give you any kind of project. There's a question, my biggest, okay. Nope, I'm not going to give you any homework this week other than go ahead and read ahead of your chapter, okay? And really pay attention to those 5 parameters of signs and really start to think when you're signing your emotion that you want to be in. So if I'm saying, hey, tomorrow I have to go to work, show it in your face. If it's you don't want to go or I want to go or you're kind of, doesn't matter, show that in your emotions. So when you get to your chapter, you might sign, okay, show it in your face. Is it bland? Are you excited? Or are you not so excited? All right. Any other questions for me? That's all I got for tonight. Let me see if you got any questions. I'll hang out for just a few moments. All right. Did you learn something tonight? You're very, very welcome. Okay. So what are you going to do when you're doing your homework? Turn the mouth off. All right. Visualize what you're going to sign first. Don't depend on you sounding out the letter. See that word. Hit the letter. Don't wait. Don't bounce it. Hit the letter and keep going. Okay. No homework video for this week. So we don't have to turn it. No homework. Just read. I'm that kind of teacher. I like you to read. All right. And feel free. Actually, you know what? You done did something to me. All right. This is what I want you to do. I want you to try to find a couple of videos of interpreters. Okay. I don't know if you go somewhere, you see an interpreter or maybe YouTube it. And I want you to watch them for a good 2 to 4 minutes. And I want you to see if you can tell if they're doing ASL, SEE, case, or pigeon. Okay. So that will be a little bit of a homework assignment for you because I want you to start seeing the different styles because you'll meet deaf people who sign in English. I have a friend who signs in English. I have a friend who signs in ASL. I have a friend who kind of goes back and forth. And I want you to be able to kind of blend with it, okay? Because you're not going to go to a deaf person and tell you have to sign this way. Communication is natural. Language is natural. So however they feel best to communicate, that's what they're going to use. So one more time, the homework is for you to watch an interpreter, or you can even watch a deaf conversation, somewhere where somebody's giving you sign language. And I want you to see if it's ASL, SEE, case, or pigeon, okay? That'll be your homework, and read. Let's see. Yes, candidates at church are most interpreters doing SEE. Sometimes. Typically, they do case, which means that they're going to do English, but they're going to use English word order, but they're going to actually put the correct meaning. All right. So when they say something like "Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound," that people don't know what a sound is, so they're not going. A lot of times they interpret that as "Amazing Grace, how sweet the word." You see word instead of sound, because sound won't mean anything to them. Okay. Press conferences have interpreters check the news. Yes, thank you, bro. What's the difference between C and case? So C is I'm just making you pay attention to the words. So if I hit the wrong run, I might say I'm running for office. In English, if we actually heard somebody say I'm running for office, you would laugh because that doesn't make sense. Are they running from the office? Maybe they are. Maybe they don't want to be there. All right. But case would actually put the right run. So I'm running for office. I'm putting ballots in and I'm running for office. So that's the difference. All right. Any other questions for me? All right. You're welcome. All right. All right. Feel free to email me at classes@marioteaches.com. If you have any other questions, you can also hook us up on our Facebook page or even our Instagram page. You have several ways of getting to me to ask your questions. We got a bowling night coming up next month. So that'd be fun if you're in the Augusta area. It'll be social distance, all that jazz. But that's on our Facebook page. All right, no other questions? All right, well, I hope y'all have a great evening. Thank you again.